We begin with the repentance and the refuges in the cover. We join in the three bows. Standing bows are always proper. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully allow. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully allow. All my past and harmful karma, born from beginningless greed, hate, and delusion, through body, speech, and mind, I now fully allow. I take refuge in Buddha, I take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha, I take refuge in Buddha, the fully awakened one. I take refuge in Dharma, the compassionate teaching. I take refuge in Sangha, the harmonious community. I have completely taken refuge in Buddha. I have completely taken refuge in Dharma. I have completely taken refuge in Sangha. Please turn to the Heart Sutra in English. Heart of a great perfect wisdom sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva when deeply practicing prajna. Clearly saw that all five mancha mancha senyante te para te parasam te modi swaha. May this merit extend universally to all, so that we, together with all beings, realize the Buddha way. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Prajna Paramita. Please join the three bows. The closing bells, palm to palm or gasho to the altar. Facing across, shashu, informal bow to the doshi, our virtual doshi. And again to the sangha, the community. Please return your chant cards if you would like to have one of these at home. Please take it home with you. Good morning. We are going to reset the zendo a little bit, and so if one of you could bring a chair for me out here, one of these chairs is fine. Let's set the camera. Those online, please be patient with us for 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so. Take a little bio break if you like. And we'll set this up. You're a techie kind of guy.
Sure.
The camera will go in front and let's roll the screen out here. Everybody, please sit on this side of the zendo. Yep. Let's see. What's left? Is it Carlos or Marcos? Okay. So are you taking off?
Yes, sir.
Okay. See you next time. On the back of that pamphlet is my email if you want to contact me. Or take one of these. Yeah, I'll take one of my cards. Yeah. These are my online programs. So, a little camera angle, we always manage to get the storage unit in there somehow. Why don't we try straight on view? And everybody just sit here. Thank you. Keiko. San. I almost chanted the Hanya Shingo today because you're here. Next time we'll do that. I will need the lectern from the hallway and my laptop from the conference table. So greetings all. We're going to have a little difficult time today because we don't have an operator as such to operate the screen. Unless Joseph can step in and do that, I'm not sure. It's only important, I think, at the end when we're taking questions, but everybody can just chime in themselves. I'm not sure we need that white window there, if you can take that out. No, on screen. Do we need that? One of those remotes over there, they typically bring the mouse over here. So you use it. Oh, use it on your stomach. That's smart. I always thought a cool design would be a vest in which the keyboard was imprinted in the vest, and you just do this. Like playing an accordion. That's why there isn't one. I retrieved my glasses. I can read them. I'll talk today. Who would like to ring the bell today? I can't do everything. We're a little short-handed today. Can somebody online speak up? Come on camera, Angan maybe? Let us know if you can hear us.
Yeah.
Joseph, if you'll get the other mic that we pass around, see if that one is operative. It may be back on the storage shelf here. It's, well, he's got it. And see if it's operative. Can you hear us online?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Nice to be heard. We're a little short-handed today, but as Master Dogen once pointed out, all the famous places you hear about in China, typically you'd have a half a dozen people there at the most. You have all the tire kickers coming and going from time to time. But the hardcore tended to be just a half a dozen or so people. And I think the general consensus over history has been that four constitute a sangha. So today, what I thought I would do is share with you something which is and would somebody bring a copy of my book from the vestibule, the original frontier? Thank you. Okay, I think we're getting there. So, let's begin with the Dharma opening verse. This will be at least tangentially related to Dharma. And we start with 3 strikes of the bell and a stop, and then in the very last line, striking the bell 2 times. So please all join. Dharma opening verse. The unsurpassed, profound, and wondrous Dharma is rarely met with even in 100,000 million kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, accept and maintain it. May we unfold the meaning of the Tathagata's truth. So, once you get my view set here. Today I'd like to share with you a project that was put on hold, as many projects are, of course. When I was writing when I published the original Frontier, I'm going to show you this, I'm sure you're sick of seeing this, but those of you who are not familiar, this is the current book that is available online. The original Frontier is Serious Seeker's Guide to Zen. Lee, you were saying something about you were reading it. What was your comment? Does the mic work? Yep.
Compelling and lifetimes worth of reading. Sorry, I'll say it again. I've been reading the book and dipping in and out of it. I haven't started from beginning to end, but I've gone through it relatively extensively, and I was hesitant to say anything to Sensei because for fear of looking too much like a suck-up, but I just find it an incredibly compelling book, and it's written in a way that resonates for me particularly. It's a great one to dip in and out of, and I recommend it.
Keep it next to your bed or next to the toilet. It's intended and designed as a user's guide, sort of a user's manual for meditation. Hand it to Joseph. I think you have a copy, Joseph. Pass it to the other. So, as part of that process, one of our members here is a academic scholar type, and he suggested that we develop an online course for the book, and he coached me through it, and it turns out that you don't simply quote the book, you write a whole lot of other commentary that goes with the book. And so we got through the whole process, as far as I could tell, of writing, it's called Zen in Our Time, an online course in 3 8-week segments, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. And it turned out to be 9 segments because we had an introductory segment as well. And this gentleman works for a major university here in town, so he knows whereof he speaks, and I had never done this before. But once we got to the point of I had written all 9 segments. Some other personal things intervened in his life where he couldn't continue with the project, so it got put on the shelf. And this happens, of course. But I wanted to read to you the beginning part, a modern introduction to Zen today. I'll read it rather fast because it goes on a little longer than we might like. And if you look in your chat, I think you'll see that Laurel Studstill put a copy of it in there for you. So you can download this and print it or whatever you want to do with it, but you can read it at home, or you can read it in detail afterwards. So I thought I would run through it quickly and then use it as our topic of discussion today. And because it's as long as it is, I will read rather quickly. So buckle up. Take notes if you like. So unit number 1 is the foundation, Buddhist basics, perfecting practice and sitting in stillness. So welcome to another online course about Zen, and more specifically the Soto Zen school of Buddhism. You probably have some familiarity with Buddhism or even Zen, otherwise you would not likely be taking this course. You may have read articles or a book or two about Zen or practiced some form of meditation. Some of you may have undergone training in Zen or other meditative traditions in a formal setting, attending regular weekly sessions and longer retreats. The objective of this course is to clarify for yourself which teachings of Buddhism are relevant to you, to provide some background on Zen, the importance of Zen's unique style of meditation, and finally some approaches on integrating Zen practice into your daily life. This course may look and sound a bit different from other Zen material you may have read. There's a reason for this. My background is in design, which literally influences how I see the world. To augment more traditional text-based Zen approaches, I've charted the basic teachings of Zen as semantic models, 3D structures flattened into 2D charts for the sake of illustrating their interrelatedness, as well as providing visual aids and mnemonics for you to visualize and remember them. These will also allow you to do further analysis of the overlapping and interconnected implications of what otherwise typically appears as a linear outline and literary exposition in written form only. The structure of the course will be segmented into 9 units, which can be undertaken at your convenience. The material will consist of text covering the foundations of the topic, 2, written commentary on the text, and 3, a video commentary on the themes associated with the topic. The text is based on the content of the forthcoming book, at this time it was forthcoming, The Original Frontier, Serious Seeker's Guide to Zen. That was published in 2021. Laying the groundwork. Zen Buddhism, like many topics, is both a very simple and complex at the same time. The amount of material in Buddhism appears at times, like the description of Dharma gates, endless. So it is helpful to provide some Buddhist background as we understand it in the Zen tradition. Buddhism has been around for 2.5 millennia, so its teachings are nearly impossible to assimilate in any comprehensive way. According to tradition, Buddhism is founded on the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama, a young prince, who lived and died in northern India some 2,500 years ago. Upon his undergoing a transformative experience in meditation, he became known as the Buddha, the fully awakened one, the Shakyamuni, sage of the Shakya clan. Buddha comes from a root word that simply means awake. Zen claims to directly transmit the essence of his experience through its meditation, and this course will attempt to help you understand that unique designation for Zen meditation, or Zazen in Japanese. This should be understood from the outset that Buddha was not a, quote, Buddhist, and that his experience is accessible to all who are willing to follow his teachings and adopt his meditation as a central part of their lives, regardless of how they self-identify in terms of religion. The 80,000 plus texts and commentaries that make up the traditional body of the written record are daunting in their sheer volume and can be impenetrable in their density. They are also subject to wide variation, owing to the process of translating from ancient languages into modern English. The modern scholarship has added to the depth and scope of analyses of their meanings and relevance. Currently, it would probably be impossible for anyone to read everything written in English about Buddhism, or even the subcategory of Zen. Fortunately, Zen offers a workaround. According to my teacher, my Zen teacher, Reverend Soyu Matsuoka Roshi, referred to simply as Sensei, which is Japanese for teacher, and most other teachers of Zen, studying the literature is not nearly as important as one's own direct experience in meditation. After all, it can only record the second-hand experience of others who pursued the study of Buddhism and the practice of Zen. Get the literature, in other words, you can only record that. So the primary focus of this course and the overall thrust of the propagation of Zen, particularly in the West, is the practice of its highly focused method of meditation, which integrates posture, breath, and attention. Zazen is like a magnifying glass or a prism. It is a method for focusing our awareness on our own direct experience, which is where the findings of Buddhism began, with the meditation of the historical Buddha. Here also is a place where Zen, particularly Soto Zen, varies from other forms of Buddhism. Meditation, quote unquote, as a technical term, while frequently used when talking about Zen, is not actually synonymous with Zazen, although there are superficial similarities. We will discuss this in greater detail later in the course. The Four Noble Truths. So any questions so far? Any comment or question? Give me a question that requires a short answer if you have one. Okay, so far so good. The Four Noble Truths. Touching on the findings, conclusions, and recommendations that Buddha discovered during his life, begins with the teaching of his first sermon, sometimes rendered as the middle way or setting in motion the wheel of the truth, of the law. In it, he unfolds the basics of the Four Noble Truths, a kind of take it or leave it description of reality, the true causes and conditions of sentient existence, and the Noble Eightfold Path, a thoroughgoing prescription of practice, covering the 8 dimensions of leading a Zen life based on meditation. The semantic models illustrate the components of each teaching and reveal the interconnections between them. At this point in the course, we will not go into great detail, but briefly touch on the 4 and the 8. Buddhism's Four Noble Truths are traditionally translated as the existence of suffering, its origin in craving, the potential for cessation, and the path to follow in daily life leading to cessation. This begs the question, what exactly makes them so noble after all? They can be ennobling, but only if we embrace them. If we do, they can enable us to live a life of compassion in the context of suffering. But I think they can also be considered noble in the sense of the noble gases, which are chemically inert. The noble truths do not change with circumstance. They do not interact with nor react to changes in circumstance. They are always and only true, no matter where or when we find ourselves in space-time. My interpretation varies somewhat from the traditional, of course. The first of the 4 truths is that this existence, indeed any physical existence, is of the nature of suffering. There is no existence without change, which is the universal dynamic of suffering. As human beings, we are caught up in this change, and we take it personally. We suffer not only physically, but also emotionally, mentally, and even socially. Other sentient beings also suffer, but apparently not in such a self-absorbed manner as do people. The second truth is that most of our suffering finds its origin in and is exacerbated by attachment and aversion, craving and clinging to the pleasant and avoiding the unpleasant. Suffering is both natural, as in aging, sickness, and death, and unnatural or intentional, as in self-inflicted and mutually inflicted suffering between human beings, and imposed upon other sentient beings. Buddhism embraces suffering rather than trying to avoid it. The third of the truths offers hope that suffering can cease, but only through our embrace of it. That is, the natural processes of aging, sickness, and death cannot be avoided no matter how hard we try. They are built into existence itself. Unnecessary and unintended suffering can come to an end, however, through relinquishing, or at least lowering, the extent of our craving, or modifying our craven behavior. Even natural suffering can be mitigated through acceptance. The fourth and last of the quartet is that there is a way of living daily life as a path to cessation. Its usual interpretation of the 8 points begins with our worldview or intention. We work on evolving that view toward conformance to that of Buddha or Buddhism through examining our thought or understanding. View and thought together comprise right wisdom. Observing kind speech, action, and a compassionate livelihood add up to right conduct. Engaging effort, mindfulness, and meditation, we develop right discipline. The only real discipline in Zen is self-discipline, in spite of its reputation for the strict monastic lifestyle of Zen monks and nuns. But the same applies to lay practice. Wisdom, conduct, and discipline constitute our tripartite path. The model illustrates that these 8 components of the 3, the outer person or conduct, the inner person or discipline, and the fruit of the practice, the evolution of true wisdom, are all interconnected in complex ways. For example, the intersection of right speech and right action. You talk the talk, but you do not walk the walk. Your words do not match your actions. Each pairing of any 2 of the 8 dimensions can be analyzed in such a manner. But the important thing is to be aware of them, observing how they affect our lives and how our manner of living affects them. Perfecting practice. And we could stop there for a moment. Any question pops up? If you make a note of your comments or questions, we can deal with those at the end. So the next section, perfecting practice, meditating on how to do it. So in design, a little aside here, in design we have what we call methodology. It's sometimes used as a fancier substitute for method in talking about the methodology by which we did some research or whatever. The methodology is actually the study of method itself. In design circles, because we're dealing with complex problem-solving situation, there's been a whole field of design which is the study of the method itself and improving and evolving the method of the design process itself. I think this is similar to writing. You can read a lot of books on writing, and you can see that a lot of thought has been given to the process of writing and how to do a better job of it. So meditating on how to do it is kind of like in your own personal practice of meditation. If you consider how you're going about your practice of meditation, you might find some things that you're doing that you don't have to do, or some things that you're not doing that maybe you should try. And be creative about the very process of meditation, rather than taking it as received wisdom of others as to the quote-unquote right way to do it. So a little more creative approach would be, you would be applying methodology to your own method of meditation. Just improving your cushion, for instance, just creatively working with the stability of what you're sitting on so that you can sit for longer periods of time in comfort without undue stress and so forth, not an endurance contest. So coming from a design perspective, again, I'm biased. Everything to me is like a design problem, and it can be defined. And in defining it, we can find solutions, or we can at least find things to try. So perfecting practice means meditating on how to do it, meditating on how to do meditation. In today's hectic environment, it is difficult to believe that meditation would offer more than a temporary relief from the pressures of living in the modern world. But Zen meditation goes deeper than simply offering a self-help regimen. It points at the very origin and meaning of our lives. When we think of perfecting our practice of any activity, such as playing the piano or performing the ballet, naturally we form some sort of goal or expectation that we hope to realize. But the notion of perfection in Zen is not like that. There is an ancient Sanskrit term, paramita, that is sometimes translated as perfection. There are 6 such, sometimes expanded to 10 in traditional models. Here we look at the basic 6-pack, usually translated as generosity or giving, precepts or morality, which I would say ethics instead, energy or effort, patience or forbearance, meditation, contemplation or concentration, all 3 terms are used, and finally wisdom. There are many teachings about these traits, which are considered highest values in Buddhism, to be developed through practice. But in Zen, without going into detailed analysis of the perfections or a kind of pro and con ethical evaluation, we instead look to discover their true meaning and application in our meditation. The founder of Soto Zen, 13th century Japan, Master Eihei Dogen, is said to have commented, paraphrasing, "What precept is not fulfilled in Zazen?" So in Zen Buddhism, the perfection of all desirable personality traits and full comprehension of them is only possible through diligent pursuit of wholehearted meditation practice. Matsuoka Roshi would often say that we should always aim at the perfect posture in seated meditation, never imagining that we have achieved it. This amounts to posture paramita. In Zen, the term is interpreted as perfecting, more a verb than a noun, begetting an open-ended attitude toward pursuing the ideal without preconceiving it. Equally, with repetition, any endeavor, such as practicing the piano, dance moves, sports, and martial arts forms, will reach a turning point where it becomes truly musical, transcendent, and transformative. Your practice of meditation will likewise naturally go through several turning points in its evolution. Eventually, it will become what my teacher referred to as, quote, the real Zazen. This is when posture, breath, and attention all come together in a unified way, or not two. Zazen, just sitting still enough, long enough. Soto Zen has been criticized historically as being a form of quietism, withdrawing from the world into a kind of passive, self-absorbed navel-gazing. But there is nothing quiet about the world that Zen inhabits. Whether sitting at home alone in the classroom or in high-speed traffic on the expressway, the alert and awake nature of the Zen mind is fully engaged. The focus of Zen is on the present moment, but the activity that is occurring moment by moment is ceaseless, relentless in its changing dynamic. This is why Zen is so highly prized in the martial arts and in sports, where everything is moving so fast that there is no time to think. We sit still in order to recover our original mind, in which stillness is not separate from motion. This is one meaning of an ancient Sino-Japanese term, mokurai, stillness in motion, motion in stillness. It also connotes that silence is thunder and vice versa. The silence in Zen, in other words, is not the absence of sound. The silence is in the sound and vice versa. Same for stillness and motion. Nonetheless, we emphasize the stillness part, as we are usually in crazy motion, as an old song by Paul Simon recalls. It is difficult to slow down, let alone come to a full stop in today's world. When we do so, by sitting still enough for long enough, a whole new dimension of reality opens up for us. We enter the original frontier of the mind, discovered by Buddha 2.5 millennia ago, and passed on to us by the ancestors of Zen. So towards the end of this, there's the ending of the beginning, a summary and the key points covered so far, but I think I will skip that and that's part of the course. And I have a little commentary here on a video that's included with the course. My teacher, Soe Matsuoka Roshi, laid out the basics of Zen and Zazen in poetic detail in a small pamphlet. The thought, art, and practice of Zen are referred to as its flower, fruit, and life. Thought of Zen is the flower, the art of Zen is the fruit, and the practice of Zen is the life of Zen. In a beautiful parallel construction, he states that we are attracted to the beauty, savor, and life of Zen. Zazen is positioned prominently as the place of the practice of Zen, and the statue of Buddha displayed on the altar as the ideal seated figure of Zazen, not an idol. Some of the most confusing aspects of Zen, why we pursue it, how do we practice it, and what does it have to do with Buddhism, are succinctly clarified in this little pamphlet. And by the way, I used that pamphlet to organize the first chapters of the book. The last stanza expresses the human factor that we love the flower or thought, we rejoice in the fruit or art, and we yearn for the life of the practice or the practice. This poem is an amazing tour de force, considering that it illuminates so much of Zen's reason for being in English, a second language for Matsuoka Roshi. In the intervening years of my practice, I have found nothing that contradicts this description, and nothing that quite matches it for brevity, focus, and depth of meaning, with the notable exception of Master Dogen's Zazen Shen, lancet for Zazen, or acupuncture needle for Zazen. And as an aside, of course, there was an original Chinese version of that, which Master Dogen adapted to Japanese. The pamphlet goes on to outline the three dispositions that we are to focus on in Zazen. And by the way, the pamphlet is available, downloadable. The pamphlet goes on to outline the three dispositions that we are to focus on in Zazen, namely those of the body posture, the breathing, and finally the mind or attention. The closing stanza relates what one can expect to experience as one's practice of Zazen approaches perfection. Matsuoka Roshi warned against ever imagining that we had achieved the perfect posture, however, and gently admonished that we should just keep aiming at it. Master Dogen, on whose lengthy 13th century teaching, as we know as Fukan Zazengi, this brief summary is clearly based, went even further, describing Zazen as, quote, making effort without aiming at it. I take this as referring not only to posture, but to any other preconceived idea of perfection in Zen. Some comments in the pamphlet indicate a deeper level of direct experience that may be encountered in Zazen, such as the line describing strength entering the lower abdomen, or describing the sensation that you are lifting the ceiling with the top of your head. This indicates the profound stillness and stability to be found at the core of the posture, like a sitting mountain feeling, one of his frequent expressions. There's also a reference to stomach power, or hara in Japanese, the suggestion that the source of vital life force, or ki, in the martial arts, finds its focus in the center of the lower abdomen, the pelvis. The mind is not, quote, all up in your head in Zen. The sensei would also remind us that whatever occurs in meditation is, in one sense, the product of our own mind. So we should not give it too much importance, nor should we disregard it out of hand. After all, we cannot know what the beginning of insight might entail. If we did, we would all already be enlightened. The specifics of what each individual may or may not experience depends upon all the causes and conditions surrounding her or his life and practice, which Sensei would condense into the catch-all expression, depends upon. One thing depends upon another in Buddhism. He would also often say that, quote, we teach each other Buddhism, which is a different take than the usual on the teacher-student relationship. in Zen or any other arena. In Zen, we also recognize that our practice evolves, changing over time with changing circumstances. Though it provides one of the few dependable constants in life at the same time. Many experience the well-known plateauing effect encountered in sports or other activities. Sensei's command of 2 languages allowed him to draw on Japanese to explain something in English. One example is a word pronounced chado in Japanese to explain, which translates to something like fall up in English. He said that in Zazen we would go along for a long time with no sense of accomplishment, nothing happening. He said that if only we do not give up, one of his constant encouragements, we will experience a chado, a fall up. It may be large or small, but it is sure to come. But we fall up to the next plateau and, once again, find ourselves facing a period of seemingly no progress whatever. This, however, is a function of the mind in Zen, called the monkey mind. Like a monkey, this aspect of our mind is never satisfied with what is, always looking for something new or better, like a monkey jumping from limb to limb of a tree. This expression originated with Buddha, we are told. If we are patient with the monkey, eventually, like a kitten or a puppy dog, it will wear itself out and lie down to take a nap. Then the Zen mind can come to the fore. We have to outlast the monkey. If we take the direction of our Zen teachers to heart and follow their instructions as well as we can expect to come to similar findings as did Buddha and our ancestors in India, China, Korea, the Far East, and Japan. We and they are all human beings, after all. They had no reason to deceive us. In this sense, you cannot really get this wrong. You can, however, discourage yourself or set yourself up for failure by imposing too strict an interpretation, too preconceived an idea of Zen practice upon your approach to it. We have to creatively reinvent Zen for ourselves to allow it to fit into our lives. Other practices that are widely misunderstood by Western practitioners, such as striking the shoulders with a stick, called a kyosaku in Japanese, are explained as far as they can be in words. Sensei only mentions in passing that it is traditional to ask for the stick when one becomes sleepy or conversely overly active mentally. In his published collection of public talks, he devotes 2 chapters to this curious piece of Zen lore, narrating one of the collections naming one of the collections, the Kyosaku, after it. This demonstrates the importance he placed on the stick. Too bad most Americans don't get it. Like most things in life, some things have to be experienced to be understood. But it should be mentioned that even if you do not get the blow from the stick in the controlled conditions of the Zendo or meditation hall, you will get it anyway under the uncontrolled conditions outside. You can all testify from personal experience. This is one instance of how the highly specialized training in Zen has a halo effect on daily life. If you have become accustomed to the extreme clarity of mind engendered in quiet meditation in the Zendo, you will be better equipped to face the chaos in daily life, whether behind the wheel in traffic on the expressway, in the boardroom, the football or military field, or at home alone. 2 aspects of Zen that I have mentioned remain foremost in my mind. Its irreducible simplicity of method and the importance of finding the right teacher for you. I highly recommend you pursue both with diligence, as if your hair were on fire, as per Master Dogen. So the rest of this is additional references and so forth. So let's stop there, take a deep breath. And I'm going to ask Joseph here, he's a newbie in doing this, so be gentle with him. He's going to try to facilitate the Q&A period. And so if you're online, just raise your hand or come off mute and come on camera, not on camera. And we will listen to what you have to say and hopefully respond in an appropriate way. Or we can start in the room.
Yeah, is there anybody in here who has a...
Can you hear this microphone with Joseph speaking?
It looks like it's transmitting. Okay, yeah. Perfect.
So Joseph, why don't you start with it? Or somebody has one? Good.
I've got a question because I know so little. I'm curious about this fall up, and I wonder if you could expand on that a little bit. When I hear it, it seems to me, and not knowing exactly what it is, it sounds like a failure that you get a benefit from.
Fall up.
Anyone can comment, as far as I'm concerned.
Anyone can what?
Comment or respond?
Anyone can promise it?
No, can comment on that. I
Oh.
thought you were asking someone online to respond, but if you,
No.
I'm asking you, but anyone is
Yeah,
welcome to comment.
In design, I work with a lot of large groups, large clients, and international clients, and retail groups, and there's always a large committee type of approach. You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're risking millions of dollars on anything innovation new that you do, and they would have this comment that would often come up in this meeting that we don't have to touch that again. Now, in the design and maintenance of a Zen center, which will be the topic of my talk October 1st, it's the future Zen, or Zen of the future, independent thinking, interdependent action, Saturday evening, October 1st. And then later at the conference, October 15th, I will be approaching this question from the perspective of the special context of establishing a Zen center, and the boards of directors would be equivalent to the design committee meetings, right, within a corporation. We don't have to touch that again. Well, you do if you don't have corporate memory. If nobody reads the minutes, right? You come back around to it again and again and again. So you could think of it like that in your own personal meditation process. We speak of as climbing the 100-foot pole, right? We're inching up the pole, and every once in a while we slip and slide down, and we keep climbing. So finally we're perched on top of the 100-foot pole. Matsuoka would take his hand like this, and he'd say, one more step, one more step. So you think of that as, that's the big choda, right? But while you're inching up the pole, you might slide down again, or you might seem to go backwards, but from a modern, I think, psychological, scientific perspective, it's not actually possible to regress. It can seem that you are, but if you just don't give up, as Sensei would say time and time again, you continue. And at like the last 10 yards of the 100-yard dash, when you're out of oxygen, you're hitting the wall, and very, very difficult. The first 10 yards was a lot easier, right? If you persist, you may cross the finish line. Of course, in Zen we say there's no actual finish line, so we don't get caught up in that. But anytime you overcome that resistance, that in sports experiences deprivation of oxygen, uric acid, hitting the wall. Anytime you overcome it in Zazen, in that sense, you don't have to go back there again. You don't have to ever touch that one again. So somebody said there are three classic barriers to practice. And the first is physical comfort, just being able to sit, physical comfort. Easier for women than for men, some people say, because my mother said women are more loosely put together. So they don't have the resistance built in the body that men do. But often, if it's too easy for you in the beginning, suddenly you have mental barriers and emotional barriers that pop up right away. So I don't know what the three are exactly, but they say one of them is sleep. Once you're past the physical resistance barrier and you can actually sit comfortably, then the next barrier is sleep, like so many hurdles that you have to get over. And I think that's what Matsuoka Roshi meant. He said, when it's, and he didn't say this, but I'm embellishing, perversely, the worse it gets, the better it is. The worse it gets, the closer you are to that choda, to that, going through that barrier at least. And they're all called Dharma gates. Sometimes the gate is rusty, sometimes it's too narrow, heavy, sometimes it's on fire. But you have to go through the gate. The idea of the gate is there's the other side of the gate. So you have to go through. Of course, we always say once you do go through the Dharma gate, you find out you're still on the same side of the gate. There was never, it's called the gateless gate. But the choda is something you really shouldn't look forward to, because you probably just get in your own way. But all of us have had this experience of, oh, stupid me. Now I get that. So that became clear. I don't have to think about or worry about that anymore. Like the other metaphor, the analogy Buddha used is peeling the onion. The outer layer away, there's always another layer, another layer, another layer. The thing goes deeper and deeper and deeper. One more comment on that. Makyo is the term that's used, the Japanese term for something we might interpret as hallucination or confusion or vision or something, LSD type experience, something like that. But according to Zen, there's no such thing as an actual hallucination. Everything comes from a real source. Anything that you experience, no matter how fantastic, is coming from a real source. It has a reality. And personally, I think some mental disorders are based on fear. When people start having these kinds of experiences and they can't talk to anybody about it, and they can't, nobody, frightens everybody else if you talk about crazy things. That's crazy talking, remember that expression? That may be a big part of the problem, because we're engaging in a kind of intentional personality disintegration. We're allowing ourselves to fall apart. So we're going out of our mind in order to come back into our mind, or for the self to be reconstituted on a better basis. So the choda may seem really trivial and insignificant, irrelevant, or it may be very deep, very big.
Are there any questions or comments from online? Bill, I see you came off of mute. If anyone would like to make a comment, please. Frank, we have a hand raised. Please just come off of mute and thank you.
Howdy. I have a question. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about monkey mind, and what to do when you get distracted. Because I feel like when I try to just wait it out, I get wrapped up in whatever the thought is, and then I'm off on some tangent, and then I've lost my concentration. And
a lot of people misunderstand Zen to be emptying the mind of thoughts, I think, or meditation to be emptying the mind of thoughts. And we say good luck with that. That's not going to happen. Monkey mind is the automatic output of the brain. Often, it's often defensive and survival oriented. If there's a loud explosion, you're not going to not react to that. Right? So if you look at it as your friend, or like a kitten or puppy dog, as they said, it has limited capabilities in dealing with this blank wall we're sitting facing. Right? We're not giving it anything to work with. And so it's going to go berserk in the beginning. It's going to be really freaking out. And we say just let it go. If you try to fight it, try to suppress it, it'll turn into a 600-pound gorilla, and you will lose that fight. So it's on your side. It's all oriented to survival. It's trying to help, but its skill set is very limited in terms of zazen. So the other side of the mind, called bodhi and chitta, are set up as the two primary bifurcation of our conscious awareness. Roughly, I think you could say bodhi would be intuition, gut level, underlying sensing of things, and chitta would be analytical, the ability to parse and diagram things out, cost benefit analysis, that type of stuff. And that's what we've come to rely on nearly 100%. In, getting the good grades, getting good jobs, competing, figuring out what to do next, pro-con analysis and all that. And so the intuitive mind has been pushed into the background with notable exceptions in high levels of science, music, the arts, and so forth. Intuition is given more credibility. But when you sit facing the wall, you learn to stop relying on thinking. Master Dogen called it non-thinking. It's not exactly not thinking. It's just not what you're doing. What you're doing is not thinking. But thoughts may come along, like you hear a sound, a dog barks, and you recognize it was a dog. You wonder what kind of dog that was. It's natural. And there's intentional thought where you pursue that line of thought and, oh, I should get a dog, and goes on and on. That's monkey mind. So it's kind of an innocent thing, but it is a distraction. And just as we don't try to control the body, we follow the body. If you have pain in your leg, you should move, do something about it. Buddha moved, I guarantee you, Buddha moved. It's not an endurance contest. And so follow the breath. This is the natural posture. This is the natural breath. Your body will teach you this posture. Your body will teach you this breath. So similarly with the mind, let the monkey mind do its thing. Pretty soon it'll run its tether out like a kitten and puppy dog and lie down and take a nap. When it realizes there's nothing going to happen here, we're just dog chasing its tail. So then bodhi mind can emerge, or wisdom mind, or intuitive mind. So I think what's happening on a psychological, or maybe that's not the right category level, is coming back into better balance. Coming back into better balance of intuition and analysis as the different functions of the mind. Society necessarily emphasizes chitta, discriminating mind, the ability to, I don't know how much intuition there is in law, for instance, but there's an awful lot of analysis in there. So if you think of the wheel being out of alignment and a wheelwright corrects it so that all the ties on the wheel are equal and it's round now and can roll smoothly, it's more like that. So monkey mind is the tendency to go off the deep end. But again, I say embrace the vacillation. It's necessary that we vacillate into anxiety in order for us to return to the middle or to serenity. Then we might go all the way over to complacency on the other extreme, necessary to correct to come back to the middle. If you look at that vacillation as the natural way that the mind works, it's not all monkey mind, the balancing process, if that makes sense.
Looks like we have a hand raised from Nicole. Would you like to share a comment or a question?
Good morning. I just had a comment when you were talking earlier about stillness is not separate from motion. And I think you said silence is a sound. It just made me think about music. And I remember hearing once that I've heard a musician say once that silence is also a note.
Right.
So that made me think about, I just want to offer that comment.
That's great. My brother was a jazz pianist. My dad had a jazz band in the 40s, and I learned a lot of Zen from them, expressed as music. My brother's John Cage famously said, the music is in the space between the notes. All what do we call them, binaries, or all dyads, all dualisms, or all opposites are like that. They depend on each other for their own definition. So Okamoto Roshi, one of my teachers, said when you say form, you're already saying emptiness. When you say emptiness, you're already saying form. They cannot be separated from the beginning. So sound and silence are like that. They say the sun reverberates at a very low B flat. Avarasha.
Yeah, I guess I had two. One was when you said that we, as in people, probably suffer in a more self-absorbed way. I want
Suffer
more than like animals or other beings in a more self-absorbed way. I think.
more self-absorbed.
Yeah, I wanted to like get to know more about like what do you mean, like more.
Well, it's hard to imagine a cat or chicken or dog or cow sitting around mulling over things, and worrying about things. When they're in trouble, and they don't like it. If they've got legs caught in a trap or they're fighting or something like that. But we don't imagine that they're very reflective. Now we're finding this is an old idea that animals have sheer instinct, and I think that's been discarded for many decades now. And it's shown that even cows, I don't know how they prove this, but they can recognize themselves in a mirror. And they don't think they're another cow, but that's another cow. And dolphins and whales, elephants, we think some of these other animals have very high levels of intelligence, languages we can't even comprehend, and so forth. So it's not an absolute division, but our empirical method of studying the evidence of our senses and analyzing it, then reflecting upon that as part of the empirical method, seems to be a double-edged sword. It means we can, Matsuoka Roshi once said, there are people who can talk themselves out of existence. Kind of extreme. So the power of our analytical mind explains things like cultural evolution, why we are the dominant species on the planet. I can teach my son to build a kayak. He can make an improvement that he teaches his son and daughter and so forth, and passes on generation after generation. This explains. Orville and Wilbur Wright weren't that long ago. Look at where we are today. Everybody is one air flight away from everybody else on the planet. It's like everybody stayed up all night and day working on that thing alone. So that's the rapidity of cultural evolution. Biological evolution, not so much. We're still way behind. And so we've created a world in which we don't belong. We can't evolve fast enough to catch up to this. Now with genetic manipulation, that may change. That's what a lot of people are afraid of, that Pandora's box. But human beings are the only ones who can get this wrong.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. No, I think I get that. Yeah, I was more curious on but I think that when you said that it's double-edged sword, like that makes sense. I was more curious, like, is reflection a self-absorption, or is reflection like part of contemplation and meditation? So
probably both. You can think of best case scenario interpretation of it, but Buddha identified this reification of the self as the fundamental problem, a fundamental problem in our concept of existence. Matsuoka Roshi would often say, there's no dichotomy in Zen. It's not actually in reality. Dichotomies are all in our mind. So this also applies to the reification of the self. It's not real. It's not actually there. Yet we insist upon it. And we have Christians who claim to be Christians bombing whole civilizations and still believing they're Christians. I mean, that shows you how far it can go. It's insanity. Ignorance amplified up to the level of insanity.
Thank you.
I trust dogs to be cows, horses. I don't think they're neurotic. Other people can be neurotic. Psychotic.
Are there any other questions from the Zoom? Feel free to just jump off mute and
John usually has something to say.
yeah.
And John usually has something intelligent. Tells me to give shorter answers.
Good morning, Hojo. John Hinman here. I apologize for lack of video. I'm in the middle of a move that's occurring and everything is chaos.
Welcome to the club.
maybe this chaos has broader ramifications. I just wanted to thank you for your reading this morning. I personally connected with it in a way that was extremely helpful and encouraging and beneficial and insightful. So thank you for that reading.
You're quite welcome. And I think you have access to it through the text or through the chat. I think you can access it. Laurel said he put it on the chat before he left. If you want the document.
It's not on chat, Hojo.
Well, those of you who have my email and want a copy, would like to review a copy, send a query to me and I will I'll send it to you via email. There are 8 other chapters like it. And it really surprised me that I had that much more to say about a book I'd already written.
Yeah. I would appreciate if you'll send me a copy because my hearing is, I get about 50% of what you guys are talking about.
Okay, well, you know how this works. My memory's in the same sad state. So my email is my short-term memory. I need you to send me the query.
What are you talking about? Why did you say that? I'm being funny. Sorry. Bye.
I will do.
Thanks, John and Ungen. Anything else? I think we're probably closing in on time unless anybody has.
Please send me a copy of your reading that you presented in the Sunday morning.
Okay, I'll try to remember everybody, but if you send me an email, I don't have to remember all of you.
I guess it.
Monkey's on your back.
And the content is similar to your book, which is available for sale, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Clay, I see you there. Anything? I'm calling you out. Frank? Janice? Joe? Joe always has something good to say. And as does Janice. Don't get me wrong, everybody.
Good morning, Sensei. I'm working today, so I'm doing 70 on I-20. So I'm gonna hold any comments and.
Looks like you're part of the E Street band.
I don't have any comments, but thank you for the time.
You're welcome. What do we do? Okay, well, we can close with the 4 great vows. It's similar, 3 strokes at the beginning and 2 at the end. We go through the 4 vows 3 times. Anybody else? How many questions? Keiko-san, do you have something to ask her? Oh. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Illusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize. Very good. I wanted to remind you, thank you for your support, as April already said. But I wanted to remind you, October is a pretty busy startup for us. We have the October 1st and 2nd, we're hosting the end of the STO retreat here. Sunday we'll be doing the Busarai, chanting the Buddha ancestors' names. On Saturday, Brian Price, our chair of board, will be giving a talk in the afternoon. I'm giving a talk that evening. Then October 15th is the follow-up conference. It's just a business meeting on Saturday, October 15th. So you're all invited to attend that. We will be nominating and naming new officers to the STO board. Then, and just reviewing the business of the board for the past year. And I will be giving a talk at that as well about future events, as I see it at least. Then the second, we had a retreat in July, wraparound retreat, Abbott's retreat. The second one of those will be October 7th, 8th, 9th. That is Friday evening, all day Saturday, Sunday morning, over that weekend. So those in this region who can attend, if you try to attend, I think Jacksonville is going to try to bring some people up. And you're also welcome to attend online. So look into the websites and keep an eye out for save the date events coming up in October. We're cranking up a little bit more. Thank you all for your patience and listening. Good to see your smiling faces.
Thanks everyone for your practice. Yeah, we'll see you next Sunday. Just keep sitting.
So we hit that end button.